In this second topic on garbage collection, I want to expand on some of the techniques which are specific to browsers mentioned in the previous topic. Specifically, I'm going to address how to remove event listeners in JavaScript. Not all JavaScript developers are familiar with this feature, but it is critical when talking about garbage collection, so I wanted to insert it here. Now, if you are coding for the browser, then you'll be working with the DOM. The DOM is short for Document Object Model. It is simply an interface that allows JavaScript to manipulate the content, structure, and style of the HTML document. The HTML document is represented using nodes and objects so that the programmer can interface and work with every element on the HTML page. There are numerous commands for working with the DOM. I covered these in detail in my Getting Started course, and I've included some of these topics in the appendix if you need to review. I've included information on the DOM and commands for selecting and working with DOM elements. All right, now back to the topic at hand. If you have attached an event listener to an object or a DOM element, and that event will no longer be used, it is a good practice to remove the listener. So let's take a look at an example. Let's take a look at the HTML code for this page, which I'm currently showing. Here it is. As you can see, it's a pretty simple HTML page. We have a title in the heading. We have some CSS. Then in the body here, we have a few div tags. And what I want to do is I want to attach an event listener to this div tag here that has an ID of title. So if we take a look at our JavaScript code, as you can see, this app.js is attached to this HTML file. We have declared a few variables here. Now, I'm just doing this simplistically to show an example here. So I have used some global variables because it's so simple. I'm not taking the time to do it a different way. I just want to show this example. So we have some global variables here. One is a count and one is a title variable that stores that div that has an ID of title. That's how I select it there. So we're going to add an event listener to that. So I come down here and I simply do, take that variable there, add event listener. And we need to indicate which event it is. It's a click event. That's one we want to use. And now what function is going to call? And that's title click, this function here. Now, at times you may add event listeners with anonymous functions where you declare the function right here. Instead of declaring it before, you declare it inside of the add event listener. And that's fine, but you need to be aware that if you do that, you're not able to remove the event listener. So if it's a case where you may need to remove it, then you should do it this way. All right. And I'll talk about the reason for that in just a minute when we get to that point. But first, let's just make sure this is working. I'm going to save that. I already have the virtual server running on that page. So I'm just going to resize this. And let's show the console so we can see the console log message when I click on the title. And as we can see, that's showing up. And the counter is incrementing and telling us how many times it's been clicked. All right, so pretty simple. We've added the event listener there. Now, let's look at how we would remove that event listener. So let's say up here, we wanted to remove it once the count was greater than 5. So we're just going to do a quick if statement. If the count is greater than 5, well, that's a situation where we're going to remove the event listener. And here's the command. We have to use the same object that the event listener is attached to. In this case, it's a DOM element. So title dot, and then the command is remove event listener, like that. Now this part inside the parentheses here has to match what we had down here when we set up the event listener. And that's why I say that when you use an anonymous function, you can't get that to work. You need to declare the function beforehand. So these things are the same. And even if you declare options or use capture, anything else when you set up the add event listener, you need to include them up here as well in order to remove them. That's one of the requirements of this remove event listener command. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. That'll refresh the page. As you can see, those messages disappeared. Now, if we start clicking it, count, we'll get 6. Now it should be removed. Now I'm clicking on it and nothing is happening. And so that event listener was removed. So that's basically the process of removing an event listener. Wanted to cover it here because we were talking about garbage collection. All right, let's move on.